We are here at the Biohackers World Expo. I'm Jenny, also known as Biohacker Blondie, and we are here going to interview Clayton of the Roots brand, which we're so excited because you are a big proponent of detoxing and you created Roots brands, all these amazing products. So we're going to talk about all your products, how to detox and everything. So welcome.
Thanks for having me. This is kind of the fun part of being in LA.
I know.
Of talking about detoxification, because the last year has been an opportunity for everybody to understand how the environment can affect your health. So
1000%.
Let's get into my favorite subject. For the last 20 years, I focused on this. So this is one, detoxification. True systemic detoxification is the most important thing in I would argue, the one thing that everybody should start with in any process of a health journey, of a performance journey, or a longevity approach. So
for sure.
Where do we go?
Let's talk about why it's important to detox, what we should be detoxing, and how to detox.
So it's interesting that the health, the wellness, the longevity, the biohacking space is very similar to the medical industry, right? Mm-hmm. Is everybody wants to focus on symptoms and diagnosis, but they're not focused on etiology, right? In medical school, and I grew up in an integrated veterinary practice, so I was really fortunate from about the time I was 2 years old to be going through, the aspects of health in humans and animals, and I was studying mineral supplementation when I was 8 years old. And as I got through college and started into my business career, I've always been able to integrate health into everything that I was doing. But about 20 years ago, my world flipped upside down, because everything that I was taught and we learned, growing up, was that it was about diet, lifestyle, and exercise, right? And then I had a perspective completely flip, that the equation for this whole thing is actually addition by subtraction. Because if you look at symptomology, and if you look at the way Americans are today, and I'll talk more about Americans than I will the rest of the world, because what we deal with in America is really unique to us because of the amount of chemicals and pollutants and everything in our environment. But if you look at research going back to the 1950s and 1970s, that there is one primary etiology, there is one cause to virtually every chronic degenerative disease, every issue that we have. Toxins. So it's not just toxins in general, it's one. So it's not even a matter of looking at this and going, oh, well, in this instance, it could be this or this or this. And in this instance, if you have these symptoms, that there's going to be this diagnosis, and then it could be these things. There's actually one that was published and proven in 1970 with the research that they were doing going back in the 1930s, 1950s, to publish the research in the 1970s with the meta-analysis they were looking at. The primary etiology of what they knew at the time was about 85% of all chronic degenerative diseases was mercury.
I was going to guess glyphosate.
Well, and this is the interesting part, because glyphosate was introduced in 1976, right? And it created chaos from that point. Make sure that we get to that one, because there's an interesting piece of what glyphosate has done to the environment and what it's doing to us, across the board, because of how pervasive it is, because it is a liquid and it's been sprayed on 95+% of our farmland. Yeah. And it's gone in the water supply and it's circulating. So that's one part. But mercury is the worst neurotoxin known to man. It's the second most deadly chemical known that's not a radioactive isotope that is in our environment. Dioxin being number one, right? So dioxin is what they use to make Agent Orange. They know it kills everything, right? And it's very well established. We know that you're exposed to it, it's going to kill you over time. Mercury is really unique because it won't kill it. In most instances, it won't kill you. But what it does do is it'll disrupt every system of the human body, but it'll do it differently in every individual based on the environment. And the worst part is when you combine mercury with other things like lead, cadmium, arsenic, cesium, strontium, aluminum, gadolinium, glyphosate, PBEs, PCBs, PBDEs, PFAS, all of these other different environmental chemicals and pollutants, mercury actually magnifies the effect of all of these other chemicals and pollutants. Wow. So you can't look at this as 1 + 1 = 2. It's 1 + 1 = 111, right? Yeah. So what you have to do is get back to the real etiology and the real cause. Because what you hear today is people talking about parasites And they're like, oh, parasites are the problem. You need to use ivermectin. You need to do these parasite cleanses. That's the worst thing people can do right now.
Really?
It is the worst thing because the end aspect of this is looking at a problem that's a hornet's nest.
Yeah.
And you go in and you look at it and you go, oh, we need to kick the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you do that, you're going to have a problem because parasites are kind of like Bebe's kids. If you remember our childhood cartoons, where you might not. They don't die, they multiply, right? Because they're a living organism that's living within this ecosystem that wants to maintain its control. And if they identify that they're under attack, they're going to breed even faster to protect themselves. But you have to understand, you can look at parasites in the body the same way that you can look at rats and cockroaches. They're pestilence, right?
Yeah.
So we're here in LA. And
we just had the fires recently.
We have fires, but the interesting part is we have had this amazing environment at the one hotel.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they don't have cockroaches and rats.
No.
Why?
Because of the environment.
Why though? They clean up, they make sure they clean up, right? No one's leaving food laying around. They clean in the rooms every day. They got people detailing the property. It's clean.
Yeah.
Therefore, the pests, the rodents, don't find that to be an environment that is conducive to their longevity or their well-being. So they're not going to exist in that environment. They could go across the street where it's kind of a dump and they're going to find garbage. They're going to find trash on the street.
Oh, I like this.
They're going to find what they need.
Yeah.
Well, if that's the case, then you look at your body and you go, are you clean or are you cleaning or are you a literal dumpster fire?
Yeah.
And in most instances, if you haven't done these things to start working to clean your body up, you're a literal dumpster fire. And you have the environment that allows the proliferation of these issues to exist. But parasites are the end process of this. And this is one thing that Christina has gone over. I'll say Dr. Christina Rahm. But she studied in her history in biotech is that parasites have never really been the issue. The biggest problem that we face is fungus.
I know, that's a huge issue.
And the crazy part is, and people don't understand this because they're not part of the Human Genome Project and they don't have multiple doctorates and have studied this for over 15 years like she has, that there are specific types of fungus in the body that if they're in existence in your body and you're consuming other mushrooms or other types of fungus, you will cause that mycelial network to grow. So what's funny is being in LA, there's an ad on a building right down the street for the second season of The Last of Us.
Oh.
Right? And if you watch that series, which was based on a video game, they actually show you what's going on in this world, in our world right now, in the first 3 minutes of the first series of The Last of Us.
Oh, I haven't.
Based on understanding that the problems that we face are not viral, they're not bacterial, they're fungal.
Wow.
And a fungus, when in the body, will take over. Now, the important part is understanding the fungal component. What allows fungal overgrowth in the body?
Yeah.
Well, dysbiosis and a lack of immune function, a lack of NAD, and a toxic environment. So that means it's the heavy metals and the environmental toxins that are creating the problems that allow the overgrowth of fungus. The overgrowth of fungus allows the environment for the proliferation of parasites. So parasites aren't your problem. You have to go back to the etiology. But the etiology, the heavy metals, the mercury, the lead, the aluminum, the cesium, the strontium, the gadolinium, all these other toxins are also creating the rest of the issues.
Yeah.
The symptoms, the inflammation that everybody says is the cause of disease. Inflammation is not a cause of disease. Inflammation is a good thing in some instances, but negative inflammation caused by environmental toxicity is going to create all of the problems that exist within the system. So you can look at your endocrine system, you can look at your thyroid, you can look at pancreatic function. You can say, oh, well, I'm insulin resistant. I'm like, well, you're insulin resistant because of your toxicity issues and your metabolic function is not working.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of trying to do all these things to improve your metabolic function. You have to address what's causing the problems. So in looking at that journey, right, then it's a matter of what do you do? And there's a lot of things that you can do to support systemic detoxification. The problem is the one substance that we know is the cause of all these things is also the substance that shuts off the body's ability to do what it is made to do to remove it.
Yeah.
So many people have heard about methylation, right? And MTHFR.
Yeah.
And it's a big conversation, right? And the majority of people that are talking about MTHFR are talking about it inappropriately because they're saying you need to take methylated vitamins. That's a really good marketing pitch if you want to just sell stuff, but you have to understand that the methylation process pertains to more systemic detoxification than it does to how you break down vitamins. Then you have to understand what has an influence on the methylation process. Well, that happens to be mercury. Because if you're properly methylating, if your liver is processing things properly, your body's going to be a little more efficient in processing mercury out. But mercury is so deleterious that it shuts off methylation. So you can't remove the mercury because the mercury doesn't want to leave.
But we want to remove the fungi initially.
You want to make sure that you're addressing the fungus.
Yeah.
Right?
And how do we do that?
Well,
what is the best protocol? Because
the key in this,
and that's what everyone wants to know.
you have to look at fungus and this amazing operating system, because we have the most complex quantum computing system ever created, right?
Yeah.
We now are starting to understand that we are an energetic being, that we are frequency based, right? And in this community, it's well understood. You can see it with Rife. You can see it with all these different aspects of, tuning into different components of the human body and looking at heart rate variability. That we know heart rate variability is insanely accurate.
Yeah.
Well, how is heart rate variability so insanely accurate when you're not drawing blood, you're not taking tissue samples, you're not doing anything else, you're looking at the biorhythms of the body? Well, that's all electrical. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? So the key in understanding the fungal aspects is, one, what's creating the environment for the fungal overgrowth, but you have to address this just the same way that you have to address HIV, right? And I will tell you, most people don't know how to treat HIV unless you've worked on HIV from a research standpoint.
Yeah, so what do you recommend?
You have to have a cocktail.
Okay.
Right? So if you remember when Magic Johnson was diagnosed with HIV when he was playing, and then they were like, oh my God, Magic Johnson is going to die because he has HIV and no one knows what to do. And then all of a sudden he's doing really well, and he's still here, and he's kicking ass, taking names, chewing bubble gum, and he could probably play ball better than most people on the planet right now, even at his age, when people were expecting him to be dead 20 years ago. So what has he been on, and what has he been doing to keep that viral load suppressed?
Yeah.
And that's been a cocktail, because you can't just do one thing.
Yeah.
Because these viruses, these parasites, and fungus in general are intelligent. They're a different being that is within this ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And they want to maintain their sphere of influence or their control.
Yeah.
Right? And if you understand parasites, you understand fungus, there are different versions of fungus that will take over the brain control of their host. They will make you a zombie, and they will make you eat things or do things that benefit them. What do those things feed on? Sugar.
Yes.
So why do people have a sugar problem? Well, they have a sugar problem because they have so much shit, literally, in their body that all of these things that are existing and controlling them are saying, do this, do this, do this, do this. It's the same thing with people talking about, I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore. Yeah. Well, moderate alcohol consumption is actually good for you. You shouldn't drink anything other than tequila.
Just like Ben Greenfield says this too.
Yeah, but that's normal. Vodka is okay. Bourbon, and I'm from the South, all of these other brown liquors, you probably shouldn't consume them because they're sugar content. Yeah. But if you look at the clear ones and you look at tequila, because tequila is botanical, right? And tequila is antimicrobial, and it supports healthy blood sugar. It helps regulate blood sugar.
I've had my blood glucose.
So you go, maybe there is some benefit here, but the overconsumption and the abuse of substances is not good. Well, why would someone be abusive of different substances? Why do we have addictive behavior? Well, that goes back to mercury as well, because it's a neurotoxin. Yeah. And it creates the dysbiosis, and it creates dysbiosis in your liver. Yeah. Right? So why do people get angry when they're drinking? Well, it's because their liver is completely loaded with toxins, and the alcohol, the acetaldehyde that's broken down from the alcohol, is actually causing inflammation in the liver. So you get angry, right? Because we know energetically, if you study Chinese medicine, your liver is the expression of that. And then skin conditions also apply to the same area. your liver is going to express its toxicity through different pathways because everything's connected. So people that have skin problems, eczema, psoriasis and such, are actually expressing liver toxicity.
Yeah.
So in looking at those, then you need a system of mechanisms to address every aspect of these pathways, right? And the key in this from a health standpoint going forward is true pathway development. And being here in California, I think it's easier to explain. We're at a biohacking conference, right?
Yeah.
And we're a biological computer. So if you use language and you use words and you understand words, then you'll understand where we're going. So if you look at computers and we look at programming and you're a hacker, right? You're a hack, right? You're doing basic stuff. You might be doing a little coding. You might be trying to get into stuff and do things. And then you have systems engineers. You've got the people that created data fabric systems for like Palantir and Bay Microsystems and Microsoft and like high level insane systems engineers. And those are the guys that have built the backbone and the infrastructure for the entire network to build on. So if we're talking computing and programming and coding, do you want to talk to a hack or do you want a systems engineer?
Systems.
I want the systems engineer, right? I want the guys that built PayPal. I don't want the kid that tried to hack my password to get into my PayPal account. I want the guys that built the entire system, right? Those guys did okay. Right? Because I'm pretty sure Elon made out on that deal, right? And you can see how what those guys have done and what they've done with guys that are insanely high level to start building all these other systems that our entire economy is basically running on and that everybody functions with and through. So you don't want to hack. You need a systems engineer. Well, the problem is in this world, there's very few of these. I'm very fortunate to be married to probably the primary one. That when you understand this entire operating system, then you can build upon that. So what Christine has been able to do because of her unique background. 20 years in biotech, 6 doctorates, masters in science, 3 postdocs from Harvard and Cornell in understanding nanotechnology and bioscience engineering and doing cloning and molecular design and working at Bristol Myers Squibb on mRNA vaccines and HIV initially 20 plus years ago to understand the environment that we're living in and how the impact of what we've seen over the last 5 years is affecting our health, is going to affect our longevity, what the real data shows on that, because if you want, you can ask me and I'll tell you. But you have to take the most powerful aspects of nature, right? Because what Hippocrates said a long time ago was, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Maybe it wasn't Hippocrates. I was trying to remember this morning who said the quote.
It's a good quote.
But if that's the case, you don't need injectables, right? And this is one of the things that drives me nuts today is people are like, oh, you need all these peptides, inject this one, inject this one. You've got people that are supposed to be healthy that are using more needles than heroin addicts in Skid Row here in LA. And they're like, I'm healthy. I'm like, no, you're not. You're shutting down your endocrine system and you're doing all this stuff improperly that's going to shut your body's endogenous production of these things down because nature actually provides the mechanisms to create all these things, but you have to have the people that know how to design the pathways in order to do this. You have to be able to activate the body's natural systems, and then you have to feed those pathways.
And that's what the Roots brand is, right? Instead of going to synthetics of all the vitamins, it's going back to nature.
And using a level of bioscience engineering that's only typically been available in biotech. The funny part is when people in this health space are talking about frequencies and polarization and quantum physics. Well, the biotech space has been using this for 30 years. This is not new to them, right? They've got the research from Harvard. They're the ones doing the research at Harvard, on aspects of quantum physics and frequencies. And that's why when you look at most pharmaceuticals, that a pharmaceutical that's introduced into the market versus when a generic comes out, right? Typically, the original drug is going to work better and differently than the synthetic or the alternative version. And it's not just because of the ingredient that's in it. It's because of how it's being made and what they're doing to it from a programming standpoint initially. Because there's a level of science that they're putting into stuff that you're not doing with a generic. So when you understand that, you have to look at nature. And the key in this is, from a marketing standpoint, you can talk a lot about ingredients, but if you don't have the right quality, you don't have the right quantity, and you don't have the right combination, it's all chatter.
Yeah.
And you can say, oh, this curcumin is great, or ashwagandha, which was the big word of last year, right? And then colostrum is, I was telling people the last 3 years, colostrum was going to be the big word of 2024, 2025. Ashwagandha was a year and a half ago, because there's these marketing cycles and things. But if you don't have the right combinations of ingredients, let's use colostrum as an example.
And the right system to absorb.
Right? And you don't have the right environment, they're not going to work. Well, colostrum's great. You got companies that are selling colostrum, and they're also selling collagen. But the key is you have to understand the right amounts of collagen and the right amounts of colostrum actually have to go together in order to work in synergy, to work with the body. But the one thing that the body needs to trigger the metabolism of both of those actually happens to be bioavailable silica, which is where you find that in the foundational piece of cleaning up the body. So
interesting.
It is a matter of understanding pathways and process. So the first thing you have to do is start to clean up the body. And the beautiful part of the way that our entire environment has been intelligently designed, and this planet that we live on is 70% seawater, 17% silica, and a mixture of other components. The human body consists of 70% seawater, 17% silica, and a mixture of other components. And if we're a biological computer like we know, and there's always symbolism in this world, why is Silicon Valley so valuable? Because it is the heart of the entire tech industry. And why do they call it silicon? Because microchips run on silica. And the human body also runs on silica, and that's the key component. And nature's most abundant bioavailable source of orthosilicic acid, which is bioavailable silica, happens to come from this little crystal that is nature's most powerful detoxifier.
Wow.
And that crystal and this group of crystals and clays are what were created during volcanic eruptions that created all the terra firma that we're able to live on, that allowed the detoxification of the environment, because volcanic eruptions are the largest natural emitter of heavy metals into the environment. And if nature didn't create a mechanism to detoxify all of those at the same time that it was created, life couldn't exist. So you can't look at the aspects of, oh, humans came from this. You have to look at the big design. The whole design of the entire infrastructure shows the intelligent design. So if you're able to take that crystal and you process it and you add in the key trace minerals and you add in a couple other components and you do some stuff with polarization and you add some frequencies and tension and love into that process, you can create the foundational piece to start detoxifying the body very, very slowly.
Yeah.
Right. And then you've got to take care of the gut. Right. So we know the gut and the heart and the pineal gland and the brain are all connected. Your vagus nerve is what connects all those. So you got to take care of the gut. You got to restore the gut.
Yeah.
And the beautiful part with your gut and the microbiome of your gut is that it regenerates every 2 weeks.
Oh, I did not
So
know this.
if you're doing good things, if you make changes, your gut will adapt very quickly if you're feeding it properly. So once you do that and you can restore your gut does something really important. It feeds your brain and your pineal gland. What's the one primary thing that your gut creates that your brain wants that is sent through your vagus nerve that goes through your heart and your pineal gland into your brain? That would be neurotransmitters, dopamine and serotonin.
Yeah,
now,
so important.
The lay people that don't understand the big picture will talk about serotonin, right? And you see this all through social media. People are talking about SSRIs and serotonin, but they don't understand the power of dopamine.
Yeah, it's
right.
So
and
important.
You have to understand that your gut produces both. Your brain and your pineal gland need both. Your heart actually needs both of them, but you need different amounts at different times of the day. So how do you do that? Well, Christina created a mechanism that we call Zero In, that is the dopest adaptogenic nootropic that's ever been put on the market. And the data that we have on that actually speaks truth to that.
Wow.
But providing a mechanism that basically fuels your gut what it needs to produce endogenous dopamine and serotonin. So it's fueling the engine that's going to produce it, but your intention is going to tell your gut what it wants and how much and when. So during the day, you're going to have more dopamine with some serotonin. But at night, this is the crazy part that people don't understand from a pathway standpoint, is that at night, your pineal gland wants serotonin. So you get less dopamine, so you can relax, right? And then your circadian rhythm switches because you go into rest mode and sleep mode. So your pineal gland actually needs serotonin to convert into melatonin. You don't need a gummy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't need to supplement melatonin. That's actually the worst thing you can do because you're telling your pineal gland, don't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have the serotonin converts to melatonin. Here's the cool part. If you have the ability to produce additional serotonin, or if additional serotonin is available on top of what is needed to produce melatonin, you'll produce endogenous DMT. You don't need mushrooms. Right? Don't need frog venom. You can do this every day.
Wow.
So by increasing serotonin to increase melatonin and DMT production, that allows you to get into deep REM sleep. And you know from wearing an Oura ring or doing HIV how important deep REM sleep is.
Yeah.
What we found out 10 years ago is that there's a pathway that starts here, that works up here, that's called the glymphatic system, that's an extension of lymph that is only activated during deep REM sleep. So that means if you're not getting into deep REM sleep, your brain can't detoxify itself, which is what 99.99% of the entire population is dealing with.
Yeah.
They're not getting into deep REM sleep. So these pathways of actually washing your brain aren't taking place.
I know.
So when people are talking about all these neurological issues and memory issues, it's not diabetes type 3.
Yeah.
Diabetes is caused by freaking mercury.
Yeah.
All of them. So then you have to look at, why are all these things happening? Well, the toxicity is continually to build up. The cascade of symptomology is continuing to go through this. We're not getting the rest we need. We're not getting into the deep sleep that we need.
Yeah.
Your brain's not cleaning itself up. And you can't function.
The cycle, and it's hard to get out of that vicious cycle. That's the hard part for people.
And if you don't make changes, you won't.
Yeah.
Right? So you can try to be the pharmacist and the chemist and listen to the hype.
Thing, I know, and it won't get you to health.
And the hard part is being at an event like this, you've got everybody trying to sell different stuff, and they're like, buy this, this does this one thing. And if you understand pharmacokinetics, and most people don't, right? If you go get one supplement from one place because you're listening to a podcast and you're like, oh, they talked about this.
Yeah.
And somebody else talked about this, and I heard this was good, and I heard this was good, and I heard this was good.
Yeah.
That if you start going to different places, one, you don't know the quality of the ingredients that they're using. And in most instances with products in the entire health space, they're using trash.
Yeah.
They're using absolute garbage.
Yeah.
One of the most toxic substances in the entire supplement industry is vitamin C. The second one's curcumin. Because if you're not getting the right sources, you're getting massive amounts of mercury and other heavy metals.
Exactly.
And how did we get a lesson on this in the last couple months? Have you seen Girl Scout cookies?
Oh, I did see that.
Did you hear that there was testing done on Girl Scout cookies?
Yeah, they're basically...
Do you think that they were injecting heavy metals into the ingredients to poison people?
No.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Right? But why would you have cookies that are selling for $5 a box as a fundraiser?
Quality of the ingredients.
Exactly.
I know, it's so bad.
You go, wait a minute. Their margins are really tight, so they're going to use the least expensive ingredients to make the cookies, to put in the packaging so they can sell for $5 and at least make a little money for the girls.
Yeah.
There's better ways of doing that. But you can see it, that if you use shit ingredients, you're going to poison people.
Yeah.
You're not going to feed your animals really poor ingredients because one, you're going to kill them, and two, the byproduct of that, if you feed chickens really bad food, you're going to have really bad eggs.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to take care of the environment. You've got to use the highest quality ingredients. But if you don't know the combination of one ingredient with another ingredient, and you don't know the right combination, right? Just because you heard one place say you need 5,000 milligrams of this per day and you need 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, well, did you know that
what about me versus a male? It's not the same.
What? What about you versus me versus anybody else?
Yeah.
Because the interesting part in this and understanding who we are is that the hardware and the operating system is all the same.
Yeah.
Right? All of us are built with the same hardware, the same operating system. We're all human, right? But the software, the apps, the configuration of all of those is unique to every single one of us.
Yeah.
So if you don't know you, how in the hell are you going to do anything to take care of yourself?
I know.
Because genetically, if you don't know how you're built uniquely. And my favorite philosopher wrote in her first book that we are each an imperfect piece to a perfect puzzle, which means that our unique design is meant to connect to everybody. And if you understand you're a biological computer and we're all frequency based and our auras are designed to connect, that means our cells all communicate and we are a network, and we know what happens if you network computers. The processing power gets faster and more dynamic. We're the same way. So if you're not understanding that and addressing every aspect and building a series of products with the highest quality ingredients and the right combinations that are all designed to work together by the same designer with the same intention, you're never going to get the outcomes you want. But if you do, then you get amazing outcomes. That's Root.
I love that so much. So where can everyone go and find Roots brand? Go find you. Are you on Instagram?
Don't find me, find my wife. Find Dr. Christina Rom. She has 3.5 million followers. I have 6, and 4 of them don't even like me. But you can go to therootbrands.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can go on the website. You can, if you want real science, you can go to drcpatents.com, and you can look at what's already been published from a patent standpoint on a lot of the work that Christina's done. She's already got 7 issued. There's an interesting one because we talk about detoxification. And detoxification of mercury in kids is really important because if you're really toxic as a kid, you might have symptoms that's diagnosed as autism. Or ADD and ADHD.
Please.
Would it not be cool if there was already a patent filed on the reversal of autism? That there's already been proof and mechanisms and outcomes and case studies that have been shown to reverse all of the issues of autism, that there's already been a patent approved or not issued yet. It'll be approved shortly, but it's already been applied for because that proof has already been done.
I'm sure.
That was done in September of last year.
Wow.
So she's already done it.
Oh my God.
And you can't apply for a patent without actually having proof, because they're going to go through the process and understand what have you done, because they're going to question it and make sure that before they approve a patent. That's already done.
That's amazing.
So if you have questions on that, shoot us a message. Find us.
Oh, I love that so much.
That's the key.
I love that. This was such a great conversation at Biohackers World Conference at the One Hotel. Thank you so much, Clayton, for coming on and doing the interview. I hope everyone enjoyed this. So thanks again.
Thanks for letting me rant.
All right, and if you have not yet been to Biohackers World, guess what? We're coming to Chicago in July and Miami in November. You absolutely want to be there. These events are unlike anything else, and I've never even seen a longevity and health optimization conference in Chicago. So I'm so excited to see all of you in Chicago at Biohackers World.